thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Whether you're taking a walk or a hike or just working around your home, there are certain plants you should avoid. Anyone who's ever had a brush with poison ivy knows what I'm talking about. While poison ivy might be the most common or notable poisonous plant in our region, there are others that cause an adverse reaction or can even be fatal if eaten or ingested. So this afternoon we've called on a plant specialist who can help us identify poisonous plants and a medical specialist who can help us understand how and why our bodies react to these plants. Leonard Perry is a horticulture specialist with UVM Extension, and Dr. Anita Licata is a dermatologist with Four Seasons Dermatology in Colchester. I want to thank you both for being with us. Now, Leonard, in the world of horticulture, what is a poisonous plant?
Okay, a poisonous plant is one that really causes some sort of reaction, and there's different ways through ingestion. Obviously, you eat poisonous berries, you get sick, and hopefully not worse. Of course, there's sap you can get on, and then there's another one we'll talk. Poison ivy is a good example of that, and then there's another one that the sap gets on, but only when it's exposed to sunlight. It's a big word, phytophotodermatitis. So you want a big word for that. But basically the sunlight reacts with the sap and causes the rash. Now, some things to keep in mind with poisoning. This can vary with the individual. Some may be allergic to something or not, or have a reaction. The amount of substance, especially when in ingestion, and the type of reaction. The other thing is that some plants are poisonous, which I find fascinating, to people, but not animals, and vice versa. For instance, a thing we love, a plant part called chocolate, is actually very toxic to dogs. So it's just something you want to really keep away from the pets. But the main thing to take home, I think, is just be aware of some of the common plants we'll be talking about, and watch children if they're outside, so because often they eat plant parts that adults wouldn't, and just don't get too paranoid. I think it's more important to think about and make sure inside, you know, that the cabinets with all the medicines and the cleaning supplies, that you can get into a lot more trouble with a lot of times.
So poison ivy is usually the first plant that comes to mind, and the best way to avoid poison ivy is to know what you're looking at.
I think so, and it's really a beautiful plant. I mean, in the fall, it's golden leaves and red, and people, I want to decorate, but you definitely don't want to do that. One of the things, it has 3 leaflets, and there's a couple of rhymes. Leaflets 3, let it be. And there's another one, 1, 2, 3, let me be. So if it has 3 leaflets, that's a good sign to start with. Now, brought some pictures so we could take a look at poison ivy. It's often dark green and glossy. As you can see here, there's the 3 different parts of the leaf divided there, the leaflets. And then here's another example of the poison ivy. And then, but as you can see, it's a nice fall color. You get some reddish and gold colors, but definitely don't decorate with that. There's a couple plants you want to just not get confused with. This is a shrub, large shrub or tree, box elder maple. And you can see it's divided, but it's actually more like a tree. It's not a vine. Poison ivy tends to be a vine, so don't get confused. And then this one has leaves that look like it, but count them. There's 5 leaflets. So that's a Virginia creeper. It's a vine, but that's not it. So, and then a couple other things to be careful of. You know, if you have dogs that go out, you may know what poison ivy is. They don't. So you're petting your dogs, and that can be a problem. If you're cutting firewood, you know, for the fall and winter, just make sure there are no vines, you know, dead vines on it. Just make sure you pull them off with gloves, because the last thing you want to do is bring that in and burn it inside. Oh my goodness.
All right, so Anita, how does our body react to poison ivy?
There's a chemical, an oil in the plant. It's in all parts of the plant, the roots, the stem, the leaves. And it's there as you said, even when the leaves are gone. The chemical is called urushiol, and it gets onto the skin, and when it reacts with your outer layer of skin, it turns into basically an allergen, something that causes an allergic reaction. So it needs contact with human skin to become allergenic, and then it has about a 4-hour period where it remains that way. So that means when you get the oil on your skin, it degrades in about 4 hours, and it's no longer able to cause a reaction. So you have about a 4-hour window to spread it all around. So you pull some weeds, and you wipe your face, and you do the other things you're going to do. The rash, however, doesn't start to appear until at least a day later, and sometimes even 5 days later.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And it sort of mimics what you did and the thickness of the skin. So thin-skinned areas that get a high concentration of the oil will react first, and as you move around, it would react later, and that's over a 2-week period. So from the first day the rash appears, you have about 2 weeks to be getting new lesions, but you're not spreading the rash. That's all from what happened many, many, many days ago.
So let's talk about some of the myths, because I thought, if one of the blisters pops and it oozes on something, that's going to spread the rash.
No, common myth, common misconception. By the time the rash appears, the oil is long gone from the skin. And so first you get itching. There's no rash, it itches. And then little pink bumps appears, and then the blisters appear. The fluid cannot spread the rash at all.
If you have the rash and someone touches the rash?
Not contagious.
Huh. Okay. So what should someone do? I mean, I was told when I was younger and I had poison ivy, my mother said, go into the ocean.
Not a bad idea. That could be soothing. Basically anything that's comforting, any kind of drying salve or hydrocortisone cream, open wet dressings. That's where you take a wet cloth and put it on the skin and let it air dry. That'll cool the inflammation, make it feel better. Antihistamines. For very severe cases, there are prescription medications, including prednisone, that can be helpful in suppressing the symptoms.
Is there some way that you can stop a child from itching if they have poison ivy? Because that's a big problem.
Better than riches to scratch where it itches. It's hard. It's going to be hard to, not itch if something is really
Are different
itchy.
people more susceptible or more sensitive to poison ivy? Or?
Yes, there's a great variety in the human population. In fact, about 20% of people will not react at all. Try as you might, rubbing the leaves onto their skin, they won't have any reaction. And then it ranges from mild to very severe, huge blisters.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, Leonard, while we're talking about poison ivy, what about poison oak and sumac?
Okay, we're lucky. We don't have to worry in this area too much about those. Those tend to grow more in other areas. The poison oak, there are a couple species. One, and that's more of a problem in the western states. California, a big problem out there. Southern New England may have a problem more with the poison oak, more of a shrubby plant. Poison sumac is not the one we see around here usually. Poison sumac versus the staghorn, that's one we see. The staghorn sumac has reddish fruit versus the white on the berries on the poison one. The poison one tends to grow more in wet areas. The staghorn grows in average to loamy soils. The poison one has very smooth leaves, very cut raggedy edges to leaves on the one that we see around here. So again, something to be aware of if you're traveling elsewhere, but not so much here. And poison ivy is the main one.
And so, Anita, is the reaction to poison oak and sumac pretty much the same?
It's exactly the same. The same chemical called urushiol is what's present in those plants as well. And interesting, urushiol is present in smaller quantities in some other common things like mangoes. It's present in the skin.
Okay.
So it's highly recommended not to take the skin of a mango and eat like that, but cut the skin off and cut the mango.
Okay.
It's also in cashew nuts, the non-roasted kind, and in pistachios. Roasting will degrade it. So.
And in fact, it's interesting, all these are in the cashew family.
Oh, really?
So.
Okay. Now, there's another plant, too, that we want to talk about, and you have some first-hand experience with it, and so do I.
Yeah, I tend to get this quite a bit. That's the stinging nettle.
Yes.
And even though I know it, and the other day I was looking around some weeds, and it's like, I don't see any, but then sure enough, there was some hiding.
There it is.
There it is. And but watch for this one. It really likes to come up in a lot of areas around. And unlike the poison ivy, this one just, you brush it, you know it. And so I carry some cream with me in my little toolkit, and I just put a little cream on, and that really kind of stops it. But still, don't want to mess with it too much. I mean, it's not real pleasant. And but it's interesting that people have used this medicinally for many years for all kinds of things, from eczema and gout to hay fever and insect bites. They've actually cooked with it. Native Americans in the spring, before much else was coming up, they would cook with it. The cooking gets rid of the stinging chemical chemicals. I've never tried it. I'm kind of
I don't think I'd ever be that
after you know
hungry.
that, it's like, no, I'm not going to go there.
Plenty of
But
other things
I've heard
to
it.
eat.
It's very good. Yeah.
So Anita, that actually raises an interesting point. What do you do? Because with my experience with stinging nettle, it feels like there are little sticky, you know, spikes in your hand. So my first reaction was to take some tape and try to, you know, get them out, but it's not actually that, right?
I think there are little tiny strands, like hairs on the plant,
right.
but the reason it stings is it's very acidic, so it's like, you know, almost getting a type of acid on your skin, and it also contains histamine, which is the chemical that causes like hives and welts, so it's sort of like a burn and a sting, which is exactly how it feels. So it's recommended to put something basic on it, like baking soda, if you can, to sort of neutralize it. And you know, to wash it off, but not to rub and scrub.
And so how long does that last usually?
You know, it depends on the person, hours, days.
Now, also, Leonard, a plant that we hear a lot about in literature is poison hemlock. Is that around here?
We're lucky we don't have that, and we do have water hemlock, so you want to beware of that one. And that has 2 or 3 times divided leaves, as you see here, very divided. And so then we also have a water parsnip, the picture of that, and that's just 1 times divided leaves. So it's more upright and green. So that's what we have. So luckily we don't have to worry about that. And here's the water parsnip. Again, that's not poisonous.
There is a parsnip that is really poisonous, though.
There is a parsnip. It's the wild parsnip. It's the one with the yellow flowers, big leaves at the base. Didn't bring a picture of that. Stems that can be an inch across, as some of mine are getting that way. Very invasive plant. I had one a few years ago. Now they're coming up everywhere. Hayfield, in the gardens, up to 6 or 8 feet tall. Big flower heads with all the little flowers on it that spread all those little seeds they make all over the place. And that one is a good example of that photodermatitis we talked about. You get that sap on, weed whacking, you get the sap on your plant parts, and then exposure to the sunlight is what causes that.
Yeah, Anita, how does that happen?
And actually, I would say that's probably the second most common rash that we see clinically. Poison ivy would be the first, but contact with wild parsnip is definitely up there. And as you're saying, the chemical in it is a photosensitizer. That means when a certain wavelength of light hits the chemical, it basically reacts and makes it burn. Like it's a toxic. It's not an allergic reaction, but a direct toxic reaction. So
Triggered by the sun.
Yeah, if you get into the parsnip and it's a cloudy day, nothing happens. It needs bright sunlight of the UVA spectrum. So either if you're going to be around parsnip, make sure it's a cloudy day, or put on sunscreen that blocks UVA light. So it contains a lot of zinc and or titanium.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because it does matter which sunblock you buy. And so what should people be looking for, not only for the parsnip, but just generally if you're going to be out in the sun?
Right. So in general, we recommend that you don't get sunburned. So depending on your skin type, that might be you need more of an SPF or less of a one. I'm very fair, so I'll need a higher SPF. If you're sweating and in the water, you need to reapply it. We like what's called full spectrum that blocks UVA as well as UVB, and the best agents that block UVA are the zinc and the titanium. So look for and you just flip over the bottle where it says active ingredients, look for those ingredients.
And so obviously too, if children come in contact with plants and they're attracted to them, and you maybe suspect that your child has gotten into that, what should someone do?
Well, I think, you know, just calling a physician, calling a poison control center.
Yep, as a matter of fact, we have that number, the Northern New England Poison Control Center.
Yeah, 800-222-1222. And, or just a hospital like we did. Our daughter is small and brought a few pictures we can go through fairly quickly, show some of these plants that kids might get into. But one was the common nightshade with the red berries. We thought she got into it. We called the hospital. Turns out she hadn't. We went in and had it checked out. But, you know, we got all panicky. Yew berries is another one, the yew bush, and that's one that has, you know, red berries as well. That's one that is toxic to some livestock, but not to other animals. And then we have, there we see the yew is a common shrub many people have here. Then there's some other pictures. We brought the common rue in the gardens. That's very toxic if eaten. There's one called the gas plant that emits this fumes. You can light a match and it has a little gas flame on the flowers.
Really?
But that's very toxic too. It's a very
Wow.
nice ornamental. One that's really toxic, you want to stay away from the castor bean plant. Ricin, the one that a few seeds, powders, whatever. Caladium, another common plant. Calcium oxalate crystals, you chew that, you really know it, burns your throat.
Ew.
And the elephant ears, which is similar, it's the same as that. And then the foxglove, of course, cardiac glycoside digitalin comes from that. So those are some to just be aware of.
And so if people want to have questions, they can check out your website. Because
Got a
you have
website with a list of all these plants on it and some links on there as well to other poison sites that list a lot of pictures.
Okay, and Anita, if people need to contact you, the best way to do that?
They can, I think, call our office number, 864-0192.
All right, I want to thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.